here we are. So, live with Build Outside the Box. Beautiful creator. Welcome. Yes, so we're live. There's no one watching yet, so we'll just give it a moment to wind up.
Can you edit these after they're in your folder? Can you like clip off the beginning of a long video?
No, like we're live now. So that's
Great.
what's going to be streamed. We probably will have a recording so we can do post-production with the recording, but everything now is out in the big World Wide Web on social media. So, yeah, and here's the first person. So thank you for calling in, watching in. And if you could help us out by just dropping a little comment so that we see that questions are coming through, that one person watching, that would be amazing. And when you start joining, tell us where you're from. It's always nice to see where people are joining from. Yeah, is that good? Okay, take it away. Jeane.
Go ahead, Kirsten.
Sure. Hi, welcome. We're Kirsten. I'm Kirsten. This is Jeane. Together we are Build Outside the Box, and we have been working together for the past year and a half, creating an online course that brings together 16 different masterminds from all over the world, teaching about all different types of sustainable and alternative construction. We're about to open for our second cohort of students, and our newest instructor is Verena. So thank you for being in the program. Jeane, do you want to talk a little bit more about what we have to offer?
Yeah, sure. So we created Build Outside the Box Mastermind over the last year and a half, and the idea is to get together as many different natural and alternative builders from all around the world to teach about different wall systems and materials and building methods to help the people who join the course figure out what is the best building type for them. Over the years, we've been working in the natural building world. We worked with Earthship together for a long time, and and what we did see was that, there are a lot of places you can go and you can learn about different materials and different types of building methods. But what we wanted to create was something that kind of put everything together so that you could kind of learn a little bit about everything and figure out what the best building choice is for you and your project. And that's based on, things like your climate, your budget, your skill level, your values, and your aesthetic choices. There's all kinds of things that are gonna help you make that decision, and our course is designed to help you do that as well.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Like when I remember when it first popped up on my feed, I was like, wow, this is cool, because it's really filling that gap when you're making that decision. And often people have sort of an idea that they gravitate for some reason towards one or the other technique, but then when you start digging into it further, I really encourage everyone to check it out and really make decisions based on what you're saying, like the situation, the individual situation, the climate, the resources, the timings, the preferences, and so forth, rather than just going down one thing because you thought that was cool. So I remember seeing it pop up and going, wow, awesome. And I'm excited to be part of the mastermind with the low density Adobe, because I feel it fills a niche.
Yeah.
Verena, we know that you're well versed in a bunch of different methods that are actually already in the mastermind, and then you've created the low density Adobe as well. Can you tell everybody what got you first interested in earth building and how it changed you?
Yeah. it's a fond memory, actually. So I'm Swiss. I'm originally Swiss. I now live in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And I first came here on students exchange when I was 16. And I just went and met the neighbors, and they were living in an Adobe home. So they are actually one of the pioneers of the modern Adobe construction and also the Earthbuilding standards in New Zealand. So that was in the early 90s. It's quite a long time ago. And I remember just entering that building, and at 16 years, I was 16 years old, and I didn't even ever think about what buildings are made of. And it was just love at first sight. I touched the walls, and I just had this amazing, instant connection with that material. It really touched me. So yeah. And that's what actually just put everything that I've studied or done professionally in motion from that point on. At the time, there was no training in natural building apart from, like a 2-day course or something. So I had to do a bit of a detour via architecture studies, and then I went more into building biology and building ecology because I feel very passionate about ecological building. And through those studies, the earth building just always ticked all the boxes. So I'm self-taught, so the natural building know-how that I have then came from total obsession and volunteering on building sites and so forth. So it's been a long time, over 30 years of obsession and love.
Yeah, it's hard to go back to conventional buildings and materials once you experience working with these types of materials.
Yes, it is. And it's actually funny because we've just been traveling. So someone was staying in our house, and they were like, "Oh, you've ruined us," because it's actually hard to go back into like a box. And while we were traveling, we were staying in quite a few little boxes. So yeah, feeling very privileged and grateful to live in a natural building.
Awesome. Can you tell us, because you've developed the low density Adobe, can you tell us about the process of testing that and developing it and starting to manufacture the bricks, and tell us more about what they're made of, what the benefits are?
Yeah, sure. So, when I first started off with natural building in a business, the business is called Solid Earth. So we specialize in Adobe buildings. We bought the business and expanded that business here in New Zealand, and it was the traditional Adobe block, the heavy block. And we're in a temperate climate here, so it's not freezing cold. Like, we don't have snow cover, but it gets cold. It's definitely cold, and some of the old building stock is quite freezing, and needs to be improved in New Zealand. So coming from Europe, I had quite high expectations of how a building should perform thermally, and starting to supply building materials and build building materials. I was always really focused on passive solar design and letting the Adobe heat up and store heat. And if you do that, like, it actually performs well in our climate, even the traditional Adobe. But the design choices, and often people don't actually design for the sun so much. So from very early start in the business, I remember saying, like that mantra, they're nice and warm in winter and cool in summer, is not quite correct in our climate. So they're definitely nice and cool in summer, but in winter they could be improved. And then there was a change in regulations in New Zealand for energy efficiency. So all of a sudden there were minimum R values that had to be achieved, to get consent. And that really motivated us into the research into the low density Adobe. And for me, like, the brief was like, keep the Adobe system, because the Adobe system is beautiful and simple. It's like Lego blocks, and you have these blocks and put them together. So no shuttering, no timber structure. It's load bearing, easy to do for owner builders. So keep that simplicity of the Adobe system, but improve the insulation value. So, there is other earth building techniques that have better insulation values, the light earth infill or straw clay. But it wasn't, we didn't want to go into that because that requires timber structure, and it is a altogether different way of building. It's more like a hybrid construction, and it's also at the time wasn't covered by the New Zealand Earth Building Standard, where Adobe was. So, yeah, we just took the thinking of light earth. So differentiation is light earth and low density Adobe different. Light earth is earth and lighter aggregates, straw, wood shavings, pumice, different things. We took that thinking and then we started testing because the New Zealand Earth Building Standard is actually cool. It allows you to develop your own building products, and it has a testing regime that is quite practical. So we just followed that. We made different mixes, we made blocks of different densities, like different weights, and just tested for strength, durability, just according to the standard. And that gave us the results that then led to the development of low density Adobe. And the materials that worked for us also, like, the nice thing about that was that it is a local waste stream material. So it is wood shavings from planing timber and cellulose. So that can be recycled paper pulped into cellulose, or it can be virgin cellulose. And those two light materials mixed with clay gave a very strong block. But that came out of trial. We trialed straw, pumice, vermiculite, sawdust, all sorts of things in different ratios, like mad professors. And then came, and the weight is reduced to half. So we really wanted to push the limit with, how light can we go and still be strong enough to be load bearing. So that was the aim. And then after those tests, we worked together with a couple of universities for thermal testing and then for full-scale earthquake testing, because that's a reality here in New Zealand is the earthquake, and also a quite strong, wind-driven rain. So we have quite harsh conditions. So, the mud bricks passing all that gave us really good confidence that it is a good material. And that's been going on for the last, at least 10 years of development. And in the meantime, they've been accepted into the building code as well. So it's cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about, you showed us a video when we spoke to you, or you sent us a video and we were able to see what the testing looked like. But could you talk a little bit about that one test, the video with the wall, because that was so crazy.
It's pretty wild, eh? Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
So that was a full-scale earthquake test, and that was done together with the Auckland School of Engineering and another consulting engineer, Richard Walker. And basically, it's an out-of-plane test. So in the earthquake, right, like some forces push like that and some push like that. So this is out of plane. So what they did is we built a foundation strip that was on a hinge, because, like, if you can tilt the wall, the gravitational pull on the wall is basically simulating the earthquake. So we built this mud brick wall on the hinged footing, and then the digger started lowering the wall, and they measured the gravitational forces and deflection, so how much it bowed under the gravitational pull. And then in the end, they shook it. So that was then a dynamic load, which is much harsher than just lowering, and it was pretty impressive. So in New Zealand, we require steel in the wall. So there's, for tensile strength, there's, in certain places, there's steel reinforcing that goes into the foundation and then all the way up to the top plate. And it was we built that to standard and just measured what happens. And they couldn't actually destroy it. So it was definitely a pass. And the engineering students that were involved were very excited about it after sort of having a bit of prejudice against the material to start off with. They were not that impressed that they had to come and study this at the start, but then everyone got really excited when they saw how it performed. Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. It takes a while to innovate something like that. So cheers to you for your perseverance. And I guess, like with the wood shavings, there's probably not a good place to put those in the waste stream normally. Do they go to a
Yeah.
landfill?
Some of them do. So I'm just thinking what happens to them in our region. Some of them are used now, like they're switching over. Typically boilers that use coal, they will switch over to sawdust and shavings. If there is a surplus, they sometimes use it in, for bare rooted trees to grow trees. But there's a mountain of them, and you don't need that much, in for bricks. But it's definitely a resource in our area. So because we have timber processing, um, and when I actually teach this, because I've got the international program where I go with students and support them, I definitely teach low density Adobe, and different places have different fibers. So, for example, rice husks or something like that. So I'm sure that it could be switched out for other lighter aggregates that are locally available. And then the beauty is, if you do that, you will just follow the testing regime in the Earthbuilding standard, and it gives you confidence that they're pretty stringent, and they're also practical. They're really good self builders.
And you built your own house too
Yeah.
with this. Can you tell
Yeah.
us when did you know that you wanted to do that? What did you consider before you started? What challenges did you face?
Yeah. Um, wow. I mean, building, honestly, uh, my I'll just tell you a little funny thing about me. So when I was, I think, 7 or something, like my first money that I made, pocket money, I spent on a bag of cement because I I wanted to build the foundations for my hut. So hut building has been a very important part of my life. Um, and it has always been my dream to build my own place. And it was from the moment I saw that building, that earthen building, when I was 16. The beauty of that was they actually made all their own bricks. Their son helped as a child, and they built it all by themselves from start to finish. And it's such a beautiful building. It's still here in the neighborhood, and um, it really felt like doable and a skill, like a really good life skill. So it was a dream from early on. And then coming here and taking on the business, it was like moving to New Zealand. It was quite a big life change. And we were a young family at the time. So the finances were what determined whether or not we could do this. And in the end, like, it was at a time where there was, how there's these peaks and when land gets more expensive and all of a sudden there's a boom. So something like that happened, and they were they put the land that we were leasing, where we were making bricks, that what was put on the market. And we were like, if we have to relocate the brickyard, it's going to pretty much put us out of business, and this is ridiculous. It's only going to get worse. So we bit the bullet and managed to get a mortgage and just did this. And it was pretty scary. So, like, the financing, like, regardless of what it was, a natural building or something else, the financing of land and that step of going into debt for that was the scariest part. And then I designed the building, and we built the entire thing ourselves, apart from metalwork, so flashings around gutters and stuff like that. We got help. And drain laying, we got help, electricians, stuff like that. But everything else we built ourselves, including timber, which was a learning curve for us. And yeah, we managed to build it at a really good price tag because of the owner builder import. And it's amazing in a way, I'm looking at it at the moment. So it's probably from a professional point of view, it was the biggest learning curve, and it gave me so much confidence that what I'm actually encouraging other people into is totally doable. There's some misconceptions about earth, natural building taking ages or being super expensive or having to look a certain way, and it's not true. So yeah, it's something that I feel really passionate about, is supporting people to find the right solution for their situation and empowering them to believe that it is possible.
Yeah. And so so for somebody who was looking to get started, but maybe didn't know, what, like how to get started, I guess, what would you tell somebody? How would you guide them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat the accessibility to land, like that thing. It's a huge hurdle, and there's privilege wrapped up in all that. So if that's solved, so if there is a place to build, to start researching, what is even possible, um, in terms of regulations, and I mean, then there's the conversation: do we want to have a building consent or not? Certain places, that's a question that you can weigh up. In any case, whether or not you get a building consent, be familiar with the building code so that you can build safe buildings, because some of the natural buildings I see around give me the creeps. So even if you don't get a building code, be safe. So, you know, and it's not the same. The reason why I say this is because sometimes here people take stuff that they see in Europe and they take it to New Zealand, and it doesn't work. Like if there's an earthquake, it will fall down, and it might really hurt someone. So you can't, that's one of the things that you guys are talking about, is like respond to the local conditions, local climate, earthquake, wind, and be smart about those things, and then research into possible techniques rather than just going, oh, I want to have an earth bag dome in a place where it's pouring with rain. So be open to choosing the right technique for the place, and also know that there's a lot of choice. And the other thing is, start looking around if there's someone locally that has already done it, where you can go and look at things, or if you need to build skills, like maybe volunteering on building sites. Like we have the Earthbuilding Association, so that is very nice group of people with a shared interest and very collaborative, and different natural building techniques are actually part of the Earthbuilding Association, so including straw here, which we have quite a lot of further south. So be open to learning about what makes sense locally and to your life, to your skills. Yeah. Like for me personally, like to give you an example, we built a double story house. Downstairs is load bearing mud brick. Upstairs is timber frame with earthen components. So earth plasters and so forth. The upstairs, so I wanted to do this because I wanted to be able to compare timber frame building to load bearing earth building professionally. And I learned so much, on the timber side of things. It was definitely more complicated, way more complicated than laying mud bricks. But that was me, with my set of skills and resources and tools and so forth. If you're a builder, like a carpenter, you might choose different, So that's what I mean. There's many layers to that conversation.
Yeah, I think in the beginning there you mentioned like finding the right piece of land. It's so important. We have a class on that in the Build Outside the Box Mastermind from Dr. Rachel Goldlust of Natural Building Australia. And she gives people questions to ask themselves to assess like what they really want in terms of their land. I think um, finding that is crucial because you can always add on to your house, make it bigger, make it fancier details, whatever in the future as you can afford it and as you have time. But it's really hard to move a building, especially an earthen building.
Yeah.
I know they in the US here they'll take these old wooden buildings from the 1800s and they'll move them on a whole tractor to a new location. While an earth building that's not really gonna fly. So having the right land, super important. You mentioned volunteering on other projects. That was something I did a lot of before I started building my house, and it was huge because I kind of banked these hours with other people that would come and help me. And sometimes you're not necessarily going to get exactly what you put out from that particular person, but if you just keep joining in and putting it out there and helping and learning, then when it comes time to have people, you'll just have people flood in and help you. And we had these big work parties where it was just like absolutely a scramble. Like you thought you knew what you had to have in terms of materials and tools and everything to keep 10 or 15 people busy, but then you're just like overwhelmed, and it's such a high energy, good feeling when people start like pitching in and helping each other. So I think that's a fantastic point that you made.
Yeah. Can I just add something in terms of that accessibility to land? Because I'm really mindful. It is an accessibility question, so there is privilege wrapped up in that, and also like a lot of the building stock is existing urban, So I'm really passionate about also including the whole retrofitting aspect of natural building rather than building new, because even if it's an eco building, a new building is a new building. And there's so much building stock that can be improved. So using natural materials for retrofitting is probably half of what we do. And we use a raft of different like cement-free earth building techniques for that. And people are really interested in it. They dig it because not everyone can build new or has land or even wants land. And you can still do so many things with natural materials that will really, really improve your living conditions. Like it will create a healthier living environment. You're not burdening the planet with your retrofitting activities, and it looks awesome, and it's often more bite-sized than doing a whole build. So yes, there's so many options when it comes to using natural materials for building. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of we get a lot of questions about retrofitting buildings, and yeah, maybe we can do a whole class on that together with you. In
Yeah.
our upcoming live sessions, we can
Yeah.
maybe do more. I would
Yeah,
love.
when I contacted you, I was like, well, the low density Adobe, I really feel it's not received the attention it deserves because it's innovation. Like I really, anything I can do to share this is making me happy because it's cool. And yeah, I mean, we could have done a whole other thing on retrofitting. Like I'm just as excited, if not more, about retrofitting because the whole thing, for me, like uh, ethically, the getting smaller and more resource wise and humble, and you know that's where I'm heading. Yeah.
I love that. I think retrofitting is super important, and it can extend even into the systems of the building in terms of how water gets treated and how the building gets powered. And there's so many
Yeah.
considerations, and it's just, um, there's a lot more there's a lot of factors to consider, maybe not more, but in terms of how far you can take a particular building on a particular site to be, more self-sufficient and more thermally efficient. But it's super important because, yeah, we have tons of existing, semi-functional or highly dependent on aging infrastructure types of buildings that could be made more resilient and healthier for sure with these techniques.
Yeah,
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 great point.
yeah. I mean, we've just done one down the road. It's a building. It's actually a historic building. It's over 100 years old. That's historic for New Zealand time frames, but it's an old stone building that had sort of additions to it. The real estate agent told the lady to knock it over. They were like, it's a whole. It's come up so nice, so nice, and the breathable materials. I mean, they were the right choice for that historic building, but it's also like thermally now performing much better. It's drier. Everything is lighter. Yeah, she's done a really great job, and yeah, and the use of the local material in the retrofitting context is amazing. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we do it's not I mean, it's not retrofitting, but it's sort of hybrid things where we will come into just totally normal conventional boxes and introduce earthen components. And even in that scenario, it will improve the whole indoor living. The what's the word I'm looking for? The indoor climate,
Yeah.
the feel.
Jeane's going to step away just for a
Sorry,
minute.
my son just woke up. I'll be right back.
It's
Um,
wonderful to have mama.
so, yeah, she's
So I'm
great.
just seeing there's a comment here. Local resources minimize cost and CO2 use for transport. Yes, if you can source them, often you can source them for free or cheap, and they totally do cut CO2 emissions, not just for transport but also embodied energy. So the earthen local materials, they just blow it out of the water, even compared to other natural building materials in terms of low CO2.
And in the Build Outside the Box Mastermind, different masterminds have given tips on how to source dirt locally, depending on if your site has dirt or not. I mean, each site is different. Sometimes you're just, on a flat site, you may not be digging in too much. You might not be able to access your own dirt, but you can go to other construction sites where they've excavated for a foundation or whatnot. And sometimes you can get some materials for free. And then last session with the mastermind, we did a challenge in the whole group where we had people do a soil test challenge and go out and grab some of their own dirt and mix a little water and, feel it out and kind of see how much clay content they had in their soil. And I think getting familiar with what is in your area is important because, for example, with rammed earth tires or earth bag construction, the amount of clay isn't as crucial as it is in like Adobe brick and other types of construction.
Yeah. It's something. When I took my own work, the teaching online with Earthbuilding School, it was a real, step, because people were saying, "Oh, you can't convey this online. It's so tactile, and you need to feel the material." But eventually, I had the courage to do it, and now with the international students, like the first two modules are all about sourcing materials, testing materials, and also doing mixes. So developing mixes with fibers, with sands, and so forth. And it's amazing, like they all go out, as you say, and then they get the soil samples and they start sampling. And actually seeing it on camera, like I understand what is going on in their soil samples. And it's been just so cool for me to, because like when you're working with your own soil, you sort of know the recipes and you know what to do. But actually, as a teacher, to be able to see all these soil samples from across the planet has just been amazing. And yeah, really coaching people through then using the soil that they found in the technique of their choice, yeah, it's very satisfying. And it's brought the world to me a little bit as well. So yeah, great that you did that with the students too. Yeah.
That kind of makes me think about the myths and misconceptions that surround natural building, because I remember when I was building my own earthship, I had people ask me, well, you're gonna have the internet, at your house? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, if you have the internet, then you're not off the grid. I'm like, well, it's wireless. And they're like, well, that's cognitive dissonance that you're going to have the internet. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, we are out here in the desert, busting our butts, building these off grid houses. And if we don't have a way to share any of this information with people, then we've just
Mhm.
done it for ourselves and not really spread it. So that kind of led me into this idea of like, what do you think the misconceptions around this style of building are, and how can you combat them?
I mean, it's a big discussion, but what you're saying, what you're sharing, to me sounds like, oh, you should go and live back in a cave. So it's like going back living in a cave. And personally, like honestly, like there's not enough caves for us all. I probably, if I would live in a cave, I would make it pretty comfortable with some earth. Um, so I don't want to, like I usually just smile at that comment, but we're not asking people to go and live in a cave. We're actually proposing to build high quality, well performing, superior buildings that don't make you sick, are fun to build, don't make the environment sick, last for ages. I have a really good track record of longevity, smell good, all the things. They tick so many boxes. And the misconceptions around it being dirty, cheap, like dirt cheap. It has to look like a hobbit home, or it's like a cave, or I think it comes from, I mean, it's a very ancient way of building, but also it's associated with having to build buildings from local materials after things like wars. In times of crisis, now we have to use these local materials again. So there's a little bit of a negative imprinting on that. And I'm like, yes, we're actually in a time of crisis. The cost of building materials are going through the roof. I'm just waiting for you to come back to me and go, okay, maybe we should check out what you're talking about with this brick business. Like, because I I look around and it's like the building material costs have gone up at least 20% in the last year here. It's like, why are you guys not considering light Adobe? It makes beautiful modern houses like the other materials. So how do you counteract that? I mean, it's just continuous education around it. And it helps if you have nice, high profile examples and media around that. So definitely, that comment to you, or why would you have the internet? You have the internet because you're a modern person, and it's not an either or question. So what you're doing with the mastermind is one contribution to countering those misconceptions. I mean, for me personally, one is like, you're just playing in the mud. That kind of annoys me as a professional. I'm not going and telling a builder, you're playing with your hammer. you know
Right.
that's one. Or they take ages to build, or they're really expensive, or they're dusty, or whatever. Like, so there's a few things that people think about them, and the only way of counteracting is by education and actually showing good quality examples.
So to that, why do you think the Mastermind is a good resource for people, and who out there could benefit from this program?
Yeah. I mean, I think it is really good for people that are at the beginning of the natural building journey. They either want to learn about different techniques professionally, or they want to build and they don't know which technique to use yet, to be able to compare things, and really actually make an informed decision what makes sense for their situation, their resources, their preferences, and so forth. So it's really good sort of at a high level. If you already know what you want to do and you've already had some experience, you've already designed, like which technique you're going to use, it might still be of interest, but it's not for those people primarily, right?
Right.
Like,
Right. Yeah.
you tell me. Yeah.
It's for people that are considering this, have kind of identified their reasons why they want to move in this direction, and helping them decide if a material is going to be performing thermally in their climate, if it's something that's going to be accepted into their local building codes, if they're going to build it themselves, if they're going to have someone build it for them. And how some of these materials also work together, because there's a lot of crossover between the materials and the Mastermind. Like, we have Barbara Jones, who teaches on load-bearing straw bale walls, and she does them in the UK. And she's doing those walls on rammed earth tire foundations that she's gotten accepted into the codes. And she got that idea originally from Earthships. And so she's all about building cement-free buildings. And for her, that's an application. And then light straw clay can be used with other straw bale buildings. When you come to frame the front face of a building, maybe it's too big to have a straw bale in there and you want to have an insulative little wall that's connecting the front face. You can put some light straw clay in there. And then, like, the techniques in the Adobe for earthen floors and interior walls can be used in any type of natural building. So I think it's learning about what each material is made of, how it's built, where it functions, climate, and within your building itself. There's places where you want, shaded mass to cool a space, or you want dense mass that's in the path of the sun to heat a space. Like, learning the basic principles. We have Siggy Coco teaching on natural design principles. So it gives people an overview of passive solar design and what thermal mass and insulation are and what they do, and kind of basic strategies for each different climate, design strategies that will help any of these different materials work well. So I think for people that know that this is a direction they want to go in, it gives them a fluency, I guess, in all these different materials and what might work for them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that just makes me think, also the whole retrofitting, like in that, as soon as you're retrofitting, you're actually kind of much freer in terms of mixing materials and really trying different things. And with the hands-on work, it's sort of more bite-sized and you learn. I really encourage people to retrofit, to just go for it and try it out. Circling back to what you said about combining the techniques, this is something that is not easily done in an earthquake area, actually. And that's some of the education I have to give people, because they go, oh, I could do a cobble here and then straw bale. It doesn't behave the same in earthquake. So, that's again, really responding to what is locally needed. And that's why I felt like getting in touch with you, because there is a lot of earth building and a lot of people interested in natural building materials that are in either high wind zones or earthquake zones. So for them to understand how that influences their choice of technique, it feels important, I think, because there's this focus, on North America and Europe. And great, there's amazing natural building coming out of both those places, but most of you guys don't don't deal with earthquakes, so it's important. And it's not just earthquake, it's also high wind. So with climate change, the wind load will really increase on buildings, and it's comparable to earthquake loading, and especially cyclones now, so yeah, that's something that is increasing. We've just had our first very destructive cyclone here in New Zealand, and it's important to factor that in, because the building will live way into the future, hopefully, so yeah, it's great. Like, and I'm looking forward to learning from the other masterminds, because it's actually something that you say about the combination, like when I came here, there was the Earthbuilding Association, and that was it. We were just talking about earth building. And it's like, this doesn't make sense, because in reality, we're also dealing with straw, and, like we're going into straw built buildings and plastering with earthen plasters and with lime plasters. And there's so much overlap between the techniques. So it's totally important that natural builders talk to each other and cross pollinate, and, so cool. Yeah.
And bring everyone together, which is kind of this overall idea of the mastermind, is not putting forth one particular method as like, oh, this is the solution that's applicable globally for everywhere. Is just, we really want to showcase everyone's different work, and work together, because if you think about all the natural building and the whole built environment, like how many buildings are built this, like a fraction, right? And so then every different type is a fraction of a fraction, and we really want to expand that. And there's the people that are early adopters that come to this and are kind of, and the innovators and champions like yourself that are pushing these concepts forward and evolving the techniques. And then there's, the uptake of what we need is the uptake of the next group of people that are just like, maybe this is right for me, and I want to go in this direction. And I think if we can create enough momentum, we have the chance of moving the needle in terms of what is, desirable for a building, right? It can't just be, a box that shelters you from the rain that's dependent on all these systems that, like, okay, that's good enough. Like, a building can be so much more than that. It can be a regenerative place. It's a healthy and safe space. It's somewhere where you can, grow and connect with nature. That's just so many more things than just like basic fire safety or whatnot. And so we want to ask people to, demand more of the spaces that they live in, and in turn, those spaces will give back to you.
Yeah. And I so commend you for that. It's so true. I actually, because I think I was sort of part of that early, the wave of innovators. Like, I mean, they were innovators, and I was young, and I was looking up to them and going, wow, they're doing this cool shit. Like they have like earth building products on the market in Germany in the 80s. But there was a lot of competition. There was a lot of secrecy around recipes, and like, my technique is better than your technique, and this competitive thinking, it doesn't work, because the building industry is so big and natural building is so small. So I really, really, really feel this, what you're saying, that the collaboration will actually make everyone stronger. It's business wise, I think it's wise, but also in terms of growing the movement, it's totally awesome and necessary. And yeah, I mean, you're saying like demanding more of the buildings we're living in. Yes, but also actually having the skills, like the empowerment to create shelter, not just shelter, like actually a beautiful home space. And it's healing, so what Sigi says about the space being healing, totally. The healing aspect, the health aspect, has been number one for me from the start, and I see that it's not just healing the environment to you. The actual act of being empowered and doing this is healing. Working with the materials is healing. Yeah. And it's healing, like in the planetary system, it's healing. So it's important. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. Just having this, I'm going to read out the comment about the question, what the hurdles are, why it's not more accepted. Is it maybe too that natural, local, low-tech building doesn't align with the thinking of modernity? Modernity doesn't perhaps fit common perceptions of progress, developing, working towards civilization. Awesome information. Thank you so much for this live. Yes, it is that, but that's a misconception because there is progress and development and remembering and all the things in the natural building field. So I think we have a good chance of changing perception around it.
I would posit that natural and sustainable buildings are more modern than any
Yeah,
other building that you could
yeah,
possibly have. I liken this to kind of like conventional buildings because of their dependency, like sole dependency on existing outside infrastructure, are like a landline telephone. So imagine
yeah, yeah.
you had a landline telephone for your business line, for your personal use, for your internet connection, for everything. Anytime that line was severed or
Yeah.
you had a big storm, it would go down. Like you would not accept that as a modern form of communication. Well, living in a resilient, self-sufficient way to me is modern, and it's taking ancient techniques, blending them with technology, and making something that is
Smart.
just right, a real
It's just
home
smart.
instead of a bunch of
Yeah,
buttons.
Yeah.
I think we agree on that one. It's smart. It's like why? Yeah, it was funny. It wasn't funny, but we had this crazy weather event. For like 4 days, torrential rain and all these slips. Like 150 houses got destroyed,
Wow.
and we ended up with these mountains of clay. And then I was doing a presentation for a job that I did, and the mayor was there, and I just sort of like sprinkled it in. I was like, well, because she said something about all the building materials going up and the housing being expensive and stuff. I was like, well, we have a problem, but like the problem also has brought us the solution, because now we have like gazillions of cubic meter of beautiful, beautiful soil. For it would be amazing for brick making, but we don't tap into that, like it's just not quite there yet.
Yep.
That would be the smart thing to do, but it's maybe too simple. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Verena. This has been amazing. It's been awesome to work together with you, collaborate with you with the Build Outside the Box Mastermind. I have learned so much from you, and I'm super inspired by you and what you're doing, and your passion is, really, really big. So we really appreciate that. And also, for anybody who is interested in the Build Outside the Box Mastermind, Verena has a coupon. It's Light Adobe 100. I don't know if you
Right.
have that. Yeah, there you go.
Here I got the technology sorted here.
Cool.
Yeah, so we have a link to the Build Outside the Box Mastermind on our website, earthbuildingschool.com. And then if you want to get the discount, it's Light Adobe 100. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. I mean, I say that like it means a lot to me to have connection into more international natural building circles, because being in New Zealand is kind of far away, even though we have the internet. And yeah, you've had a fantastic idea, and I really hope the launch goes well. And I'm really looking forward to meeting the cohort and doing this together. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Verena. We admire you so much. You are a rock star of the natural building movement, and you're just an empowering presence. We love you so much.
Oh, love you both too. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Verena.
Thank you.
And thank you,
Yeah.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
And